Hey, what is up guys? In this video I'm going to be talking about The Shining and talking about the book versus the movie and deciding which one is better, so yeah. And just keep in mind there will be spoilers for the book and for the movie, so if you haven't read the book or haven't seen the movie or haven't seen both, I suggest you watch or read them before you watch this video. So yeah, let's get started. Alright guys, so just to be clear, I'm not really much of a reader. I just, for English class, we usually have to read a book. Like, you know how your English teacher usually requires you to read a book, like an independent reading book or whatever. I usually do what mostly everyone else does and just fake reads a book and just pretend I read a book, but I really don't. But this year I actually kind of wanted to change that up a little bit and read an actual book, so I decided to choose The Shining just because it was written by Stephen King. I thought, I'll give it a shot. And all I knew about The Shining going into this was there was the Here's Johnny scene. There were like two little girls, and there was a maze of some sorts. That's all I knew about the story, like at all. Like I haven't seen the movie, and I've never read the book, so but that's all I knew about the story going into this book. And when I was reading this book, I was waiting for all those scenes to happen, like for Jack to say, "Here's Johnny," and I was always waiting for those two little girls to eventually show up or something. And then I was always waiting for to see if there would be a maze in the book, but none of that was actually in the book. So when I was reading the book, I kind of thought to myself, I have a feeling the movie's going to be completely different from the book. And it was. There's so many differences, and I'm going to list a couple right now. So in the book, at the end of the story, the Overlook blows up. In the movie, it stays intact. In the book, Dick Hallorann survives. In the movie, he does not survive. In the book, it's room 217. In the movie, it's room 237, which personally, I kind of like room 217 better just because it sounds more evil. Like, just the number 217 just, I don't know, just sounds more realistic and just scarier for some reason. I don't know why, that's just my personal opinion, but yeah. In the book, there's a character, George Haddonfield. He was never in the movie. There are also hedge animals in the book, and there was also a wasp's nest scene in the book, which was a really creepy scene. In the movie, he had none of that. Instead, it had the Grady twins, and then there was a hedge maze, and like I said in the beginning, it has him saying, "Here's Johnny." Alright guys, so for this next clip I said Mr. Hallorann when I was supposed to say Mr. Ullman, so sorry about that. So I'm talking about Mr. Ullman when I'm saying Mr. Hallorann, so yeah. And in the book, Mr. Hallorann's kind of a jerk, and he's described as an officious little prick. So yeah, but in the movie he's actually a really nice guy. And because there are so many differences between the book and the movie, Stephen King, the person who wrote this book, did not like the movie at all, just because of how much Stanley Kubrick, the director of The Shining, changed the story. So yeah, Stephen King really did not like the movie at all. But there still are some similarities, like Danny and Dick Hallorann can both shine, and it pretty much has the same story. But now that I think about it, The Shining is completely different from the movie, but we're going to talk about which one do I like better. So first, let's talk about the book. So a quick summary of the book: there's this hotel called the Overlook, which is located in Colorado. It's not open during the winter time just because of how much it snows, and it's just really hard to keep the roads open. So Mr. Ullman decides to find, Mr. Ullman needs to find caretakers, and this year the caretaker is going to be Jack Torrance, and he's the main character of the book, and he has some anger issues, drinking problems, but he also likes to write, and he used to be an English teacher but got fired for beating one of his students. So yeah, the reason he wants to be isolated from the world and go take care of this hotel is because he wants to write a play, pretty much. So he thinks the isolation would be really good for him. But Jack is still not alone. His wife Wendy is coming, along with his son Danny, and Danny has some special abilities, and he has the ability to shine. So yeah. So first, I'm going to talk about some of the pros of the book, and there are quite a few. I really like the character Jack Torrance. I think Stephen King really wrote him well. I don't know, I think he was a really interesting character. He's probably one of my favorite Stephen King characters. It was really fun reading him being kind of not really a normal guy, but a decent, sane guy, and then just seeing him go crazy and mad throughout the book. That was really fun to read. And then I also like all the scenes between Jack and Danny. I don't know, I think they just had a really good father-son relationship, and it was always fun just seeing them hang out with each other. And I feel like that was kind of missing from the movie, because Jack and Danny in the movie didn't really have that relationship they have in this book. And I feel like making them have an actual relationship just makes the story better, just because when Jack does go crazy, you really feel, you just feel sad for Danny just because of how good of a relationship they had in the beginning of the book, and now Jack's just straight up trying to kill Danny, so I feel like that just makes the story a bit better, in my opinion, but yeah. And for a book, I did think there were some pretty creepy scenes, like Room 217. That was a pretty creepy scene when I first read it, and there was also this one scene that included a wasp nest. Like, Jack got this wasp nest down from like the roof and said, let Danny keep it in his room because all the wasps are dead. But later that night, like a bunch of wasps flew out of the wasp nest and started stinging him everywhere. And that would be really creepy. Like, imagine waking up in the middle of the night and just having a bunch of wasps flying around and stinging you. That was definitely the creepiest scene in this book. Like, it was just really creepy. And then just Jack going mad, all that was really fun to read, and just him like cussing and all that stuff. It was really good, really entertaining to read all that stuff. And then plus I also think the ending is really good, and how like Dick rescues them and everything. I think all that stuff is really good. So yeah. And then plus I also like the author Stephen King. I don't really read a lot of books, but he's definitely my favorite author just because I find it really cool how he's wrote like 200 short stories and published 61 novels, like kind of like this. I mean, 61 novels, and they're usually like this long, is pretty impressive. I just have to say that. But yeah, so I think Stephen King did a really good job writing this book. But I do think there are some cons, and I'm going to talk about that right now. So yeah, there's not a lot, but I still have a couple with the book. So I wasn't really a fan of the ending. I mean, I know I just said I like the ending, but let me rephrase that. So I like the ending, but there are certain things that I kind of want to be wrapped up, which I just feel like weren't. Because, like how I said in the beginning, the Overlook in this book blows up, which I kind of would have liked to know, like, what were the consequences of that? Like, how did Mr. Ullman react to his hotel blowing up? Because there are, like, certain characters from the beginning of the book that just never got mentioned again, like, towards the end, which I just kind of wanted to know, like, what happened to them, like, how did they react, so, yeah. And then in the beginning of the book, not a lot happens, it's just kind of slow, and for a book, when you're reading a lot of slow scenes, it can be pretty painful. Like, can we just please pick up the pace a little bit? And also through the middle too, there are like a bunch of scenes where I'm just like, can we please like pick up the pace? There's like this one chapter of the book where it's just Jack in the basement of the hotel, just reading a bunch of like news articles and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, can we please like end this chapter already? It's taking forever because it was just him like picking up a newspaper, reading it, and like it's just some history about the Overlook, which can be interesting, but just I don't know, just the way it was written just was kind of boring. So yeah. And then there's also like a side plot with Dick Halloran going up to the Overlook, which I know that was in the movie too, but in the movie it was more like, it was pretty quick, like he just hopped on a plane, he got a car, and then he got in the snowmobile and he went there, and it was just pretty much like that. But like in the book, we cut back to him in Florida, see what he's up to, he's doing this, he's doing that, we have to like read all about this stuff, and then we have to go. And then he finally gets a shine from Danny, then he's like booking a flight ticket and then packing up and then driving to the airport. Like we get a whole thing with the airport, he gets pulled over. Then we get like this whole stuff with him on the plane, and like there's like these characters on the plane he talks to, and then then he has to like get a car, rent there, and then he has to rent a car and then do all this and then do all that, and then he like gets stuck a bunch of times. I'm like, can we please, like, I feel like some of that could have been cut out, just to make the book a little bit shorter too, because it ruined the suspense. It ruined the suspense of the story, just because in the movie, I feel like the suspense is constantly building, and when we do cut back to Dick Halloran in the movie, it's still kind of like suspenseful, just because will we get there in time or not? I don't know. But in the book, I just feel like it's kind of pulled me out of the moment, especially when you're like in a really good scene of the Overlook Hotel, but then we would cut back to Dick Halloran like getting up to the Overlook Hotel. So I would prefer to not too many scenes of that. And then I feel like there's like the subplot of like Jack wanting to write about the hotel. That was just okay. I feel like that could have been cut out, but oh well. So those were my cons. Not a lot, but yeah. Overall, I think this book is really good. I do recommend it. But now we're going to be looking at the movie.